So we've done a lot of the mainstream stuff, and really this story is kind of cool because it pivots a little bit outside of just orthopedic surgeons and technique. It's a fascinating story about Michell Ruiz, who's an orthopedic surgeon from Mexico City. He's an incredibly established orthopedic surgeon, world-renowned, has done all the right things in his career moves. And then in 2009, his son Santiago was born, and his wife, who's also a pediatric oncologist, recognized that his development's off, and he's diagnosed with autism. And it's a really remarkable story about how Michelle and his wife really looked for a solution for really a unique problem. And it really changed his entire philosophy in life about how he practices medicine and how he relates with other people. It's a fascinating story. It's not our usual one. It's incredibly compelling. I know you're going to like it. Enjoy. We continue to thank our sponsor, Ortho Laser Orthopedic Laser Centers. They continue to offer MLS-MA technology for chronic and acute orthopedic pain as an alternative source to opioids and possibly even avoiding surgery. The franchises continue to spread across the country. It's an amazing opportunity for orthopedic surgeons and doctors and even medical device reps to become part of the growing technology. Ortho Laser Milwaukee and Ortho Laser Rochester just opened. We have another 5 in the queue. Come and join the Ortho Laser franchise family. Hashtag follow the fro.
From medical media, this is The Ortho Show.
Hello world, Dr. Scott Sigmund, your favorite opioid-sparing orthopedic surgeon, here for another great episode of the Ortho Show podcast, where we bring you the best of the best. And today we're bringing you the best of the best in the world. I'm taking out my passport and we're going to Mexico City, and we're going to meet with Dr. Michell Ruiz. He's an orthopedic surgeon that's a sports medicine specialist in Mexico City. He's the associate professor at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. He's the upcoming director of the Shoulder and Elbow Fellowship, as well as takes part in the Sports Medicine Fellowship. He's the current president of the Mexico Shoulder and Elbow Society. Michelle, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Scott. Thank you. This is a really honor.
Well, we're going worldwide here. You know, we always talk about the best of the best. And so we decided that it was time to leave the country and head down to Mexico City, which is one of my favorite cities. I've had a couple opportunities to go down, and I want to ask you: do you remember the name Gema Pineda at all from MyTech?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so Gema is sort of the godmother of medical device reps in all of Latin America.
That's right. Yes,
and she had the Latin American Forum down there. I think it was in 2011 or 2012, and I came down and lectured and really had an amazing time and was so impressed with Mexico City. It's such a European feel, amazing walking, amazing food, culture, architecture. It's really a cool place.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of things going on here. Unfortunately, about the pandemic, everything sort of stopped. And I mean, we're not the only place that happened in the world, but we're known because we're probably the city in the world with the most museums in the whole world. We are one of the most populated cities in the world, but thankfully, and I don't know why, because Mexicans are very well known for not being very well organized. We are not one of the top 10 cities with the most traffic in the world. So you can still drive, you can still use your car, or you can use any public service, and you can go around the city quite well.
That's fantastic. I remember the flight in was crazy because remember, Mexico City is a high elevation. I'm not sure the elevation, but
it's about 7,000 feet.
That's up there pretty good. And if I remember, the plane would sort of have to go left and then right. You had to sort of go through the mountains to be able to get in. I thought that was a pretty fascinating landing. As I was, I guess I had a martini. I wasn't sure if it was really the plane that was doing it.
No, for sure it was a plane, because especially if you come here by the end of the spring and summer, the summer here in Mexico City is not that warm because it's the rain season for Mexico City. So a lot of clouds, and having a lot of clouds at 7,000 feet, it gets sometimes real tough.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Good. I'm glad to know that that was reality.
Yeah,
So it's interesting in Latin America and South America, the education process for doctors is very different than what it is up here in the States. We just had Jorge Chala on from Argentina, and it seems like in Mexico it's a similar track. And so I'd like to just sort of talk a little bit about that. That's where you got started, and we'll work through the timeline of your very fascinating life. But again, in Mexico, there is no college, if I'm not mistaken. You go from high school directly to medical school.
that's right. You get out of college, and it depends what school you went in. You get out of high school at 18, 19, and then you go directly to university. So in our case here in Mexico, it depends a little bit on the university, but the medicine program will be a 6-year program, and some universities have a 7-year program. So by the end, it kind of get just you get out of medicine just about the same age as in the U.S. But you don't have this college experience that I think in most cases it helps, because when you're 18 or 19, you're not very sure what to do with your life. You think that maybe you want to be a doctor, but you're not quite sure. And once you get in, there's no way out.
Yeah, no, I would imagine. I mean, I've told the story before. For me, it was in 10th grade. I just knew I wanted to be a sports medicine orthopedic surgeon, but that's not the case for a lot of people. Even when in medical school, they try to decide, after 4 years of college or even taking some time off and then going to medical school. And then it's a tough decision as to what you want to do, right? And then so
That's
you
right.
have to figure out what specialty you want. So you're in this 6-year program. And so how did you decide that sports medicine and orthopedics was your destiny?
Well, I think it was something that since very young age, because I was a very avid soccer player. I intended to be once a professional soccer player. But there is a time in your life, especially when you have to decide if you want to be a pro player or a med student, that you have to decide. And I decided to become a med student, and probably for the worst reason. And the reason was that one of my best friends was a professional tennis player at that time, and he made the Mexico Davis Cup team, and he was about to play first division tennis, and he tore his meniscus.
Hmm.
So he lost 1 year of his professional life, and he told me, you have to think very well about what you want to do with your life, because if you have an injury, you're not going to have a pro life, and you're not going to have med student life. So you better decide. So I decided to go the safe way, quote unquote, and go for medicine.
Well, good for you. Now, we do a little research here on the show, and I think in your last year of medical school, if I'm not mistaken, because you're there for as long as you are, it's a special year. It's a year where they sort of take you out of the classroom in the hospitals,
Yeah,
and it's like a social service program. So
that's
tell us
right.
about that, because that must have been a very unique year.
Yeah, it's well, in Mexico about almost 80 years ago, um, the last year of med school, you have what is called the social service. So you go to a very very far community from where you live. In my case, I went to Michoacan, that is on the west part of the country, just on the top of the mountains, in the middle of nowhere. And I decided that that was my best place for doing my social service for 1 year. So I got in touch with deep Mexico, with the real Mexico, not the fancy Mexico City, what you can see or what you can read, like very very near to the U.S. But no, this is real life. This is what represents most of Mexico City, and that is a strike of reality. And I decided that I have to give more than I was giving at my time.
So you do your social service year and you give back, and it doesn't sound it's not your calling per se, but you're happy that you do it, and it's time to get back into the real world, and it's time to start doing fellowships. It's another common theme that we have here, where it's a long, arduous journey to find yourself and what you want to do within the orthopedic specialty and world. And so you do your first fellowship back in Mexico City. It's a joint reconstruction sports fellowship. And then you run into a friend of mine. your second year out, you decide to do a fellowship with Alan Barber,
That's right.
who is a very dear friend of ours. I've known Alan for over a decade or two, and he's just an amazing researcher. He's an amazing arthroscopist. He has retired. I'm sure you stay in touch with Alan, but
Yeah,
when it came to materials within orthopedics, that dude knows it all. What's this anchor made out of? What's this material? How does it break down? And then he'll go in and do a sweet ACL reconstruction in 50 minutes. So he's
that's
an
right.
amazing technician,
Yeah.
and he's really, he was in academics, but he really was a professor. And so tell us about that year. It must have been a great year.
It was a great year because, well, first of all, it was not that easy to get there because I arrived in summer at Texas, and it was hot. A lot of people think that Mexico City is hot, but because we are so high, the truth is that we have a very mild weather. So I arrived at Texas, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a long, 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 long time. So, well, I finally got to work with Alan, and I mean, his practice was just amazing, just patient after patient after patient. And in between, we talked about this new paper that was just recently published about the biomechanics of some implant, and then some other patients, and then come back and what do you think about this technique, and what are your plans about what is going to be our next paper. So I was amazed that in my first 3 months, we published 3 papers at the Arthroscopy Journal. It was like, wow, this is
That's
just
impressive.
amazing. Yes.
It really is. I mean, to get it so quickly. And then didn't you stay on? Aren't you like an editor now because of that time period and the responsibilities?
Yes. Well, he must have seen something in me because he was like, don't you want to be a reviewer for the Arthroscopy Journal? And I was like, yeah, I want to, but I don't know how to. Oh, I'm going to give you a crash course. So he gave me an extra crash course, and everything just began to run smoothly. I began reviewing papers, and suddenly, 3 years after becoming a reviewer with no background at all, I become an associate editor of the journal, an editorial board
Yeah.
member. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I love stories like that because what happens is really a mentor relationship. It's not just a teacher, it's about, let me share and let me really help you in all these aspects of life. And here you are, you're barely in practice. And then 3 years in, you're already a deputy editor. That's really a great story. So then you go back. I mean, you're not even in practice yet. We were still like, I'm not even halfway through your story, but I love telling all of it. And so then you go back and you do another shoulder and elbow fellowship in Mexico City with the elite crew. So you got your street cred, back in Mexico City now, but you've also got some amazing, U.S. training, and now you're on this arthroscopy journal as well. And then you decide to set up practice, but not quite yet. You want to do one more cool thing, and you sign up and see if you can get in for the 2007 ANA Traveling Fellowship, which is, for all those that are listening, the Arthroscopy Association of North America sets up a traveling fellowship once a year. They bring doctors in from all over the world, and then they go from like site to site in the U.S. to visit and watch and work with some of the great shoulder and knee sports medicine specialists in our country. So it's a pretty amazing, thing to be asked, number one, but what an amazing year, I'm sure. And we have so many people in common from that experience. So Misty Surrey is a friend of ours. So I know that he was part of the class. Who else was in the class? Who did you travel with?
With Tim McAdams. He's in Stanford. And I was not very sure to apply for 2007 class because I applied for the 2006 and I was rejected. So when the time came to apply for the 2007 application, I was not very sure because I do not take rejection very well. So Alan just called me and he told me, are you going to apply for 2007 ANA Traveling Fellowship? And I said, no, because I can't have two no's year to year. And he told me, no, I'm going to rephrase it. You are going to apply for the 2007 Traveling Fellowship. Okay, I can read in between lines. So I applied. I was selected, and it was just a fantastic experience. I think it was one of the best professional experiences in my life. At back then, it was a 1 month traveling fellowship, coast to coast. We started in New York, and we ended in San Francisco, California, for 1 month, and it was just a spectacular experience.
Yeah, I got to give. We always like to give shout outs to the people that we know and love. So I have a great picture of you and Sharif Bichet in 2007 at a restaurant in New York, because you went and visited Kevin Plancher, if I'm not
That's
mistaken,
right.
and Sharif was
Yes,
his fellow, and Sharif is one of my closest friends, and what and now you guys have maintained a relationship as well, for sure.
definitely. Yeah. And we were looking. I am looking for him to mentor me in this arthroscopic lateral jet technique. Then I'm really much looking forward to.
Oh, that's fantastic. What other sites did you visit on the traveling fellowship? Let's give the shout.
Um, well, we started in New York, then Yukon with Gus Matzak and Robert Terciero, to Delaware with Craig Morgan, then Philadelphia with John Kelly and Dr. Joe Tork back then. Then we went to San Antonio with Stephen Burkhardt, then Vail with Peter Millett and Dr. Stedman, then LA, and LA was just crazy. We went to SCOI with Dr. Snyder, Curtin Jove with Neil Elatrash and Bert Mandelbaum, and then San Francisco.
Yeah. So again, those are all my brothers. I mean, it's amazing that you and I have never met before, but literally we share so many
I know.
friends
Yes.
and colleagues.
Yes.
I always find that so fascinating that, across the international, culture of orthopedics, there's just this camaraderie of people that know each other. We're always so accepting. And I mean, I just love that list of people that you went to spend a month with. What an amazing experience, for sure. So, dude, you're like waiting for Godot, though. I still get a sense, like I'm reading through your journey, and like you're doing all of these amazing things, and then you come back from this traveling fellowship, you set up your practice, and you're working really well. You're with one of the top sports medicine specialists, Antonio Miguel, if I'm not mistaken, and then you're like, I don't think I've had enough education. I think I need to get a master's degree in tissue engineering, and it's going to take me 3 years to do that. And then you're through that, you get your master's and you're really getting into it. And then you're like, and that's still not enough. I'm going to go get a PhD, a 4-year PhD in tendon inflammation. And I'm going to write papers and do research and still do all my clinical practice and operate on patients. I mean, what an amazing experience. I mean, that's a long journey.
It's a long journey, but I mean, I was married at that time, but I still had a lot of spare time to do a lot of things. So I decided that was the best time to do a master's degree in sciences, a PhD. And of course, I do not regret it, but maybe I could have done some other things with my life. But again, I do not regret it.
No, it's an amazing story. And it's one that we hear a lot on the Ortho Show, how driven people are to sort of find their way, do multiple things, and really do as much as you possibly can with your time on the planet. And so obviously that's inside of you. That's the core of who you are. And then, then in 2009, probably the greatest moment in your life, your son Santiago's born, and your wife is a pediatric oncologist, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And the two of you are, watching, you're watching Santiago grow, and you start noticing some things, and it turns out a diagnosis of autism is made. And I think that has to have profoundly changed your philosophy in life and your path and your journey. Do you mind talking about that?
No, of course not. I consider myself to be always an overachiever. I always want more and more and more, and my wife it's just the same. And we already had, before Santiago was born, we had planned the perfect family with a lot of kids, and everything was just in the script. And then this is like a strike of reality, because this human being that has just come to the world is just not developing as he should be. And you go with a specialist and another specialist, and they all say, no, don't worry. He's going to get right. Both of you are great persons. Yeah, that doesn't have to do with this. No, 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 no. He's going to catch up. Don't worry. And then we were like that for 3 years. After all the pediatric neurologists that we consulted told us that, no, nothing's going wrong. Don't worry. But, we are parents, and of course, we're physicians, and we knew that something was not going well. And finally, a neuropsychiatrist told us, I have to tell you, he has a significant developmental delay, and we should label it as autism. So you have to deal with this. And he's your son, and you have to give the best that you can. Well, that was really, really, really striking, not in a good way. And now, what are we going to do? I know how to fix bones, to fix joints. I don't know if I'm going to be the best parent for Santiago. What am I going to do next? And a new journey began back then.
Tell us.
Well, after seeing that no specialists were giving us the best diagnosis, okay, so I'm going to study and see how can we help him. So I began studying neurosciences. I began studying the biochemistry because I began researching and seeing that this probably was a mitochondrial problem, and it is, but it also implies having an immuno-metabolism problems. It is. So I began researching and studying and consulting all around the world to see how we could help. And also we began studying a lot about normal child development, neurodevelopment, and the ways it will diverge from the normal route, and beginning to see how exercise will have an implication. And then again, I like, well, at least I know this. Exercise and drills can help him reconnect the brain. And 7 years later, here we are applying immuno-metabolic therapies and exercise therapy and helping him with his eliminating his primitive reflexes. And he's still nonverbal, but applying a system in which he can communicate writing. He has discovered that he's a writer. He's about to publish his first book. So April 2nd is the Autism Awareness Day worldwide. So we're planning, and this is news. We're going to present his first book because he's a very accomplished writer right now. He's 11 years old, nonverbal. He wrote all his short stories one letter at a time, and he's going to regular school. Not right now because of the pandemic, but once the pandemic is over, he's going to go back to regular school. And he has a girlfriend that he's very much worried because he's not seeing her and talking to her, and having all the now we have all the problems of a parent with an 11 neurotypical year old. That caused a lot of tears, a lot of despair, a lot of giving a lot of jumps into the abyss just to see what happened. And you have to lose yourself to find you over and over.
I mean, it's a pretty remarkable story. I mean, here you are, you're incredibly focused on your orthopedic career, from a technical standpoint, but also from a research standpoint. And then this happens, and you pivot to using your big brain with your wife to create a solution or try and find a solution. And it has to just change your entire philosophy on how you approach things and how you approach life. And I'm sure the knowledge that you've gained in this process for Santiago, you must be using to help other parents of children with autism as well.
Of course, because, having a kid with a disability, it doesn't matter what type of disability, it tends to break families. And it tends to break families because you are in grief, and it depends on how you manage grief. You can solve it, or you can live forever inside it. So my wife decided that she had to become an existentialist coach, just first for her and then for us. And once we can see that there is so much more in life than being successful, and it is more important to become meaningful, at least from our point of view, that being a physician is not enough. You have to help people, not just patients, because that means doing medicine. You're not only there to cure an ailment of the body, but also the soul. So here we are, and the pandemic was a great opportunity to help some parents that were in total despair because they didn't know what to do before the pandemic with their kids. So they decided to escape, uh, doing a lot of work and becoming workaholic. And once you have to work at home, how do you combine being a workaholic at home and being also a parent with a kid with a problem? So that tends to break families. So suddenly, probably a random reason, some friends of ours become keeping in touch with us, like, how do you manage to do these things so well? And our first response was like, why do you think we're managing with this so well? Well, because you're still married. Well, yeah, that's a good reason. But you seem to be happy. Well, yes, but happy is just a dynamic process. And sometimes you're very sad and you have to see what's happening around your life and you have to see the meaning around that and you have to see a solution. And suddenly that become like our second day job, becoming an existential coach for some parents or a lot of parents who had kids with disabilities that they didn't know what to do with their personal lives and their family lives.
So, obviously this whole process of thought and how you look at life and problems has transcended, not just necessarily in your personal life and your family life, but also into your professional life. And I think that you've sort of changed your philosophy as you were going through your master's and your PhD and all these fellowships as you were trying to decide how best to serve as a healer. And, I want to bring up another, we're going to sort of pivot here a little bit to something else, which is in more your professional life, which is about the Mexican equivalent of the ANA meeting that you host, which is a Sports Medicine Society meeting. And I really like that, as a general rule, we think of these meetings, it's didactic, it's people talking about their research, it's talking about the things that they're doing in a way in which you can converse and share ideas. But I really like, it seems like this philosophical change for you has opened up your eyes to other ways in which, even as a professional physician. And so you brought in, for example, Bert Mandelbaum and John Kelly, and tell us why you brought them in and really what they talked about in this setting of the meeting.
Of course. Well, the first meeting in which I was the program chair, I decided to bring John Kelly because first, he's a great guy. I met him while my traveling fellowship, and he's a comedian, but he's a great person, and he's such a skilled surgeon. He's such a great guy. But then the first time I heard the word mindfulness was with him, and it was like, what the hell is that? And he began explaining what mindfulness was, and I was just like, a lot of people in Mexico have to hear this because we live under a lot of stress and we do not know how to manage it. And we think we know, and we party or we just become more workaholics, or we tend to have some adventures, so to speak. And that doesn't bring like the inner peace you need to become a person, a happy person. So I decided to bring John Kelly just to talk about all these fantastic things that he does with the knees and the shoulders. But we dedicated a complete session for him to talk about mindfulness. And as we expected, like half the audience was like, what the hell? And the other half was like, thank you. I really need this because I think my life sometimes is just coming apart. And then for the second year, I brought Bert Mandelbaum. It's always great hearing him talking about his soccer research and everything he does with the cartilage and knees. He's one of the top surgeons in the world. But then he wrote this book, that The Win Within, that helps you bring the best of you. And he's someone so close to us, then you are not feeling as a surgeon that some coach that has a that makes a living as a coach is just telling some things. No, this is this guy that is daily doing the same things as you are, and he's discovering and sharing with you some experiences that can help you be like a better person and find the best in you. So you have to give credit to him for that.
No, Bert's a dear friend, has been a guest on the show as well, and he's absolutely one of our iconic sports medicine leaders and mentors here in the States as well. Speaking about books, I know that there's a favorite book of yours, and you like to quote it, and I really love listening to it. So I want you to share that with the audience as well.
Yes, well, definitely this is a quote from Robert Heinlein book that just reflects what I think about life. So it says, a human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, and die gallantly. Specialization is for instance.
Pretty cool stuff. I mean, that's about as philosophical as it gets. And, for our standard orthopedic surgeons out there, you're going pretty deep, and I really appreciate,
Thank you.
the conversation. And, we're gonna sort of wind it up here. And, in this post-pandemic world, you've talked about all of your great accomplishments within orthopedics, and you've sought solutions for Santiago and autism, and helping so many parents that have experienced that as well. Give us a quote and parting words about what your current philosophy is in life.
Once you get out of the bed just very early in the morning, give the best you can. And by the end of the day, ask yourself if you were meaningful.
Fantastic. I mean, this is what we do here. Today, we've traveled across the border to Mexico City with an amazing sports medicine orthopedic surgeon with great passion, who absolutely thinks in a very unique, spiritual, philosophical. I would describe you as a multidisciplinarian healer of both mind and body. So it's really been a pleasure having you
No,
on.
thank you very much. I was so very much looking forward to this opportunity. Thank you.
Dr. Scott Sigman, #FollowTheFro, host of The Ortho Show. Till next time.